Hello, I'm Overlord Jeebus, and welcome to Walking to Urithiru. This is part 13 of my Oathbringer preview chapter analysis. And it's going to be a big one this week, so let's jump straight in. As per usual, full spoilers for the Cosmere. I'm going to get the two prefaces from this week, and I'm going to put those together. So, I will confess my murders before you. Most painfully, I have killed someone who loved me dearly. I will confess my heresy. I do not back down from the things I have said, regardless of what the Ardents demand. And see, Dalinar is still absolute top contender. We have learned something new about the author, that they killed someone that loved them dearly. That wording, someone that loved me dearly, not someone that I loved dearly, makes me think that this is Dalinar. It's been my theory for a long time that he killed Evie, so this just perfectly... I read that and I was like, yeah, that makes perfect sense. That's what I thought Dalinar had done, so that's what Dalinar must have done. Also refers to Ardents, and I'm not sure if Ardents were around during the Sunmaker's time. Obviously, he, murdered the shit out of the hierocracy. But, were they called Ardents during the hierocracy? I'm not sure. So, chapter 25, The Girl Who Looked Up. And what a fantastic chapter this one. This actually might be my favourite chapter so far of all of Oathbringer. So we start this chapter with Shallan exploring Urithiru. The strata gets mentioned again, and how, weird, and I think in one part what was described as emerald, so it's kind of alien looking. And I do think, obviously this must have a purpose. He's not going to be mentioning these strata so much if it wasn't going to go somewhere. And since I'm under the belief that Urithiru was just soulcast, the way that Shallan uses them, where she uses them to, tell where she is, where to go, what corridor goes, they might actually be markers to tell people where to go, because it's a big fucking place. So, that just makes sense to me. Heck, they could just be to make the place look nice, because having endless black rock would be very, very boring. I think it's just either makes the place look nice because it makes it so it's not just endless black rock, or it is actually what Shallan uses it for, and it's a guidance system. And we're going to address the first elephant in the room, Shallan's play. What a sequence this was. I think this is one of my favourite stories. So far we've had the two Hoid stories from Words of Radiance and Way of Kings, and then we've got this story here. And I just love these little vignettes inside of the books, these little stories within stories, and it's So the story's about a little girl who lives behind a great wall, and the great wall keeps the storms and bad things out. She's asking about, saying, why is that big wall there? Where did it come from? And everyone's like, just keeps the bad things out, don't worry about it. The girl goes to climb the wall to find out what's on the other side, where she finds out steps. And she was like, oh, this isn't supposed to keep the bad things out. We're the bad things, and the wall was built to keep us out. She climbs down the steps to find a civilization, perfect civilization full of stormlight, steals that stormlight, brings it back. As punishment, the storms come and destroy the wall. So there's a few inconsistencies here and there, but to me this is just a children's tale. I don't think the story itself tells us much, but I do think there are a couple of important things. I think that the fact that Shallan mentions how the wall is covered in spikes and, gargoyles and stuff, but she didn't draw that, but she remembers drawing it when she was younger. I feel like this is Shallan becoming able to use stuff she's drawn not recently, because right now she can only create illusions of things she's drawn. And so the wall being covered in stuff that she hasn't drawn recently means she's going to start, I think, getting the ability to draw things that she hasn't done recently, or at least draw things that when she was younger. And I wonder what else she drew when she was younger, which made her, she got to the third oath before she was 7 years old. That's damn impressive. I wonder what other illusions she can create from stuff she remembers from back then. The second thing is the white hair on the girl, and I actually think this is the second most important part of the story, because this is something that she does not create on her own. She doesn't even say, oh, like the little girl was playing it in the play when I was younger. Obviously the Great Wall with steps on it plus white hair makes people think of Elantris, but I don't actually think it is that. What I think it is, so white hair is also associated with Hoid and Shalash because of that artwork we got last week, and so I don't think it's supposed to be directly representative of one of those people, but I kind of do. Because let me go on to what I think the most important thing of the story is the theme of, we are here, there is a wall to keep the bad things out. We go across the wall, we discover we're the bad things, we steal from over the wall, we do bad things, and the wall gets destroyed because of the bad things we did. And I've seen people think this is people first arriving at Roshar. And it could be, I think, is that kind of thing. But when someone mentioned they think this could be the Radiance, the story of the Radiance, I kind of started running away with this idea, and things started kind of fitting together very nicely. I feel like this is going to be one of those things where when we reread this 20 years down the line, when we've got Stormlight 7 or whatever we'll be on at that point, we're going to reread this story, and we're going to be like, oh, this is so obvious. Why didn't we see it at the time? Here's my interpretation of what I think the story means. When humans first came to Roshar, They found this crab paradise filled with listeners and things and spren, and they were able to make all these bonds. But there was something stopping the humans from making bonds. The wall. The thing that allowed humans to bond with spren was the sprens making this decision after the heralds. So I think the key moment we have to look at as the turning point for when the humans could start bonding sprens, or could start bonding, or having that ability, kind of the spren turning to them, would have been the creation of the heralds by honor. But once humanity was able to start surge binding via honor, giving this to creating the heralds, this kind of is represented by this little girl with white hair, and a reminder that Slash has white hair. This little girl came and stole the Stormlight from what would be the listeners, and this is the creation of the heralds. And so the creation of the heralds is the little girl climbing over the wall, and as punishment, or not necessarily as punishment for that act, but as a result of that act, a storm comes across and destroys the wall. So then we have the desolations, and I think it's representative of the storm destroying the wall, where we've got humans thinking they're good, going over to the other side, taking something that was good for the listeners, and I've talked about how I think that before humans arrived, Roshar with this lovely crab paradise for the listeners, where they could go gallivanting through the coral fields, bonding whatever spren they wanted. And so the desolations and the storm coming is punishment for the humans. And this even works in with the theme of the book we've got right now with Kaladin's chapters of us real thinking, oh, the Voidbringers are evil. Oh, turns out they're not evil, we're the evil ones. Kaladin's storyline and the whole what's going on with the Parshendi and what we're learning about the Parshendi fits very nicely with what happened in this story, in my opinion. And that's my interpretation, and I'd love to hear other people's. I'd love to hear feedback on mine. I know it's a bit wishy-washy, especially when it comes to like the wall, the honor. Honor's not really represented in the story by anything, so that's my kind of I don't really know what. I don't know, I just thought that's just my interpretation. So please let me know what you think. And now for the second elephant in the room, the shapeshifter. When the last figure in the audience stood up and walked out and Shallan realised it wasn't part of her illusions, that might be the creepiest, scariest thing Brandon's ever written. I literally gasped when I read it. On the shapeshifter, firstly, I don't think this is a Kandra. I've seen a lot of people talk about how they think it's a Kandra, and I'm just I'm not super into that idea. Firstly, a Kandra wouldn't dissolve itself instantly to try and fit into that wall. They wouldn't fall apart like that. In order to get away. They would just run away. Heck, they'd even be taken captive, because that's just what Kandra do. They're undercover agents. They're not sneaky, spooky men, unless, he's only got one spike, in which case, even then, they're still unable to really operate when they've only got one spike. I also don't think it's a Kandra because Shallan even says, how can a man look so much like a shadow when she's chasing it? And I think a Kandra would just look like a man. It wouldn't look like a shadow. I've also seen people say they think it's a Dizzy and Amian, and I don't think it's a Dizzy and Amian either, because a Dizzy and Amian would just turn into a shitload of bugs and just vanish into millions of cracks and crevices. What I do think this is I think this is a spren who is serving an unmade. Specifically, the unmade that I think is currently in Urithiru. I don't think this is an unmade, because I feel like unmades are a lot more powerful than, just a dude running about, spooking people in the dark and watching plays. If the unmade were as easy to defeat as just capture that spooky looking dude, then the desolations would have been a lot quicker. They wouldn't have been lasted as long as they did. What I think that this spren is I think this is on the level of kind of that red spren that became a Thunderclast, or even the Midnight Essences. Heck, this could actually be a Midnight Essence, and the unmade is actually Reshafir, the Midnight Mother. And so that's my theory right there on the shapeshifter. I'm just going to call it. Do you know what I'm going to call it? The mimic spren. I like the idea of a mimic spren. So that's what I'm going to call it from here on out. We also have a weird moment where Shallan enters a room and a bunch of versions of herself that she's drawn run past her, made by the Stormlight she's been kind of leaking, and then as they catch up, they disappear into her. And I was like, that's a weird thing that happened. If it was. I don't think it was on purpose. I think, it's kind of supposed to. I don't know what it's representing. Shallan just, splitting up subconsciously, so just represent her mind breaking. I don't know. Oh, but the room that she actually finds the mimic spren in, that room, I'm very happy that existed, because for me, the heating problem of Urithiru has been something I've really been wondering about. Whenever you get a certain amount of people in an enclosed space for a certain amount of time, though people produce a lot of heat, and that heat needs to go somewhere. We have whole industries right now on modern day Earth dedicated to getting heat built up by people just being in an area and shifting it somewhere else. So I've always been wondering is how does Urithiru, deal with this? So I'm quite happy that he has said, yo, there are rooms specifically like with ventilation shafts at the top of the shafts to get rid of the heat, get it out of there. So then we finally get our first good look at the mimic spren. I'm going to read you the quote because I love it. A dark mass wriggled deep inside, squeezing between the walls. Like goo with bits jutting out. There were elbows, ribs, fingers splayed against one wall, each knuckle bending backward. Shallan, whilst chasing the mimic spren, actually transforms into Radiant, and then as she's making her way down to the markets where she finds the mimic spren is heading, she then subconsciously changes to Veil, which she says she doesn't even notice. Well, the pro says she doesn't even notice. And then when she's as Veil in that market, she forgets that she's Veil, when she orders Rock to tell her what's going on. I said, that ain't good. So she goes down to the market and finds that Rock has been stabbed through the hand, very similar to how she stabbed that dude at one time a few nights ago as Veil. And so it seems this thing is copying not just murders, but also wounds. And this is another reason I think it's a spren, because to me, I have a feeling there is multiple of these things running about. I do not think it's just the one acting alone. Adolin killing Sadeas happened very far away from here. I don't think it's following Adolin or Shallan because, the murder that happened in the market had nothing to do with either of them. And so I just feel like there are more than one of these things running about operating, which is another reason why I think this is the spren and not the Unmade itself. As to why they're doing this, I'm not 100% sure, just because if the Unmade is trying to sow chaos and disruption in Urithiru, this is just the weirdest way of going about it, because it's just only mildly causing a disruption, really. I mean, it seems like there's much easier ways of disrupting people. Another thought I had is that it could potentially be that these spren are unable to act without mimicking something. If they are, as I said, a mimic spren, they might actually, or like an action spren, they may only be able to take actions that they have seen or witnessed. And so it just seems very odd to me that this is, I don't know if this is the main ability of the Armade or the spren, or if this is something they're forced to do due to the rules of their existence. I can't wait to find out. Oh, and just to end this chapter, we then have Ishnar, who is the woman who sat at the table in All's Alley, who didn't say anything to Shallan and actually smiled when she showed the Ghostblood symbols. It seems that Ishnar wants to join the Ghostbloods to get help, she wants to help out. And I'm going to whack her on the might be Ravenna list, just in case, because she doesn't seem personality-wise like Ravenna, but she might be, Ravenna might be undercover. Who knows, maybe that's why she wants to get into the Ghostbloods, to help find Vasha. Who knows? I'm actually going to end this here, because this is quite a long episode, because the next two chapters are also going to be quite a long episode, so unless you want like a 30-40 minute episode, I'm going to kill this one here. Thank you for watching. As per usual, leave a comment down below, talk to me on the Discord, on the 70th Shard, on Reddit, and I hope to see you guys next time, where we can continue walking to Urithiru. Bye!
Я стреляю, суки, пушек.